Let's get talking. The criminal origins of FBA and why some self described FBA may have an issue with their African heritage. An essay on the slavery and commerce of the human species, particularly the African, translated from a Latin dissertation which was honored with the first prize in the University of Cambridge for the year 1785 with additions. Author Clarkson Thomas or Thomas Clarkson, 1760 to 1846. Our own ancestors, together with the Spaniards, French, and most of the maritime powers of Europe, soon followed the piratical example, and thus did the Europeans, to their eternal infamy, renew a custom which their own ancestors had so lately exploited. From a conscientiousness of its impiety, the unfortunate Africans, terrified at these repeated depredations, fled in confusion from the coast, and sought in the interior parts of the country a retreat from the persecution of their invaders. But alas, they were miserably disappointed. There are few retreats that can escape the penetrating eye of avarice. The Europeans still pursued them. They entered their rivers, sailed up into the heart of the country, surprised the unfortunate Africans again, and carried them into slavery. But this conduct, although successful at first, defeated afterwards its own ends. It created a more general alarm and pointed out at the same instant the best method of security from future depredations. The banks of the rivers were accordingly deserted, as the coast had been before, and thus were the Christian invaders left without a prospect of their prey. In this situation, however, expedients were not wanting. They now formed to themselves the resolution of settling in the country, of securing themselves by fortified posts, of changing their system of force into that of pretended liberality, and of opening by every species of bribery and corruption a communication with the natives. These plans were put into immediate execution. The Europeans erected there, the Portuguese erected their first fort at Delmin in the year 1481, about 40 years after Alonso Gonzalez had pointed the southern Africans out to his countrymen as articles of commerce. Forts landed. We go to next. Erected forts, landed their merchandise, and endeavored by a peaceable deportment, by presence, and by every appearance of munificence, to seduce the attachment and confidence of the Africans. These schemes had the desired effect. The gaudy trappings of European art not only caught their attention, but excited their curiosity. They dazzled the eyes and bewitched the senses, not only of those to whom they were given, but those to whom they were shown or shewn. Uh, thus followed a speedy intercourse with each other, and a confidence highly favorable to the views of avarice or ambition. It was now time for the Europeans to embrace the opportunity which this intercourse had thus afforded them, of carrying their schemes into execution and of fixing them on such a permanent foundation as should secure them future success. They had already discovered in the different interviews obtained the chiefs of the African tribes. They paid their court, therefore, to these, and so completely intoxicated their senses with the luxuries which they brought from home as to be able to seduce them to their designs. I don't know what designs is, but maybe it's designs. Uh, anyways, uh, a treaty of peace and confidence was immediately concluded. It was agreed that the kings, on their part, should from this period sentence prisoners of war and convicts to European servitude, and that Europeans should supply them in return with the luxuries of the North. This agreement immediately took place, and thus began that commerce which makes so considerable a figure at the present day. Remember, this was 1785. But happy had the Africans been if those only who had I guess I meant to say been justly convicted of crimes or taken in just war had been sentenced to the severities of servitude. How many of those miseries which afterwards attended them had never been known, and how would their history have saved those sighs and emotions of pity which must now ever accompany its perusal? So basically, it's saying that people were sold in order to get rid of criminals and prisoners of war. Now, if we count these